All right, so a friend of mine was asking me a couple questions the other day about some race mechanics, notably about the final spurt and some of the transitions that an UMA goes through in their speed, acceleration, like what exactly carryover is, things like that. So I thought that I was answering some questions, and I realized that a lot of the questions that we were talking about were very similar to some of the other things that people have brought up in my comment section, maybe not quite understanding, or things that I felt like I've been explaining quite a bit. So, I'm going to talk about it a little bit today, and I think that it is very topical because it does tie in a little bit with Christmas Oguri cap mechanics, and maybe helps you understand a little bit more about how to best utilize her kit, how to best utilize other UMA kits, and just in general, I think that this is a really important thing to understand when you are starting to look a little bit more into maximizing your UMA performance. So to start with, in my CM8 team guide video, I mentioned that this dividing line here, where it goes from yellow to purple, is where you want to put acceleration skills when you are trying to build. So acceleration skills here will make your UMA go faster, which is why on the Arima Kinen track, we like to use straightaway spurt, because straightaway spurt hits right here, which is exactly when the final leg starts. We also like to use things like Let's Pump Some Iron, because Let's Pump Some Iron hits right here, which is the corner here. So, and the reason that we like to have these acceleration skills here is because your UMA doesn't actually use their top speed until after they cross this threshold. The yellow into the pink threshold here is when your UMA actually unlocks her top speed. So in the mid race here, and this is the Arima Kinen track, but this is the same is true for every track in the game. I'm just using Arima Kinen because it's topical, because CM8 is the Arima Kinen, but this is true for other tracks that you can rate. So mid race here is when your UMA is not using their speed stats. So even though we farm 1200 speed, we farm distance S, we farm green speed skills, your UMA doesn't even use that for, 2/3 of the race. Instead, they're using wit checks that check to see the distance between themselves and the front runner or the person in first place. They're using like position-based checks. And then if they hit like a velocity skill, like say they hit Professor of Curvature here, they would also go a little bit faster, have like that additional speed modifier there. But that's all that really dictates the speed here in the first like 2/3 of the race. Now, when we hit the final part of the race, that's when their max speed is actually unlocked. Like, that's where they uncap the speed, they see that they have the 1200 speed stat that we farmed for them, and they think, okay, I'm going to go that fast until I hit the finish line, right? So they start accelerating, right? Because they can't just be going 20 miles an hour, their normal speed, and then suddenly go 60 miles an hour, right? They have to accelerate because that's just how the laws of physics works. So instead, they're going to go 20 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour. They're going to see they're going to cross this line. They're going to uncap their speed, their true speed, which is 60 miles an hour in this example. And then they're going to start accelerating to hit 60 miles an hour. And then when I hit the 60 miles an hour, they run at 60 miles an hour until the end of the game. Now, the reason we want to use acceleration skills here is because this acceleration is relatively slow. We want this acceleration to be faster. And so when we use acceleration skills, when our UMA is already kind of motivated to accelerate, they'll be going 20, right? Same thing as the green UMA, but then let's say they hit acceleration skills here. Now they are going to accelerate faster. So in my CM8 guide, I said you go faster when you hit acceleration skills, and acceleration skills win the game. Now the red UMA has been moving at 60 miles an hour for almost twice as long as the green UMA at this point. Again, these are all like made up numbers, but when you're going at 60 miles an hour for twice as long as somebody else, you're going to be ahead of them. So the red UMA is definitely ahead of the green UMA if they both started from the same point, right? And this is kind of the basics of why we want acceleration skills, because acceleration skills will help you to close out the final leg and start moving at that top speed that you farmed so hard for, much sooner than everybody else in the lobby. Now, this acceleration strategy is also used at the beginning of the race in the opening leg, particularly by front runners, but really by everybody who is using something like groundwork or taking the lead. Well, only front runners can use taking the lead, but like a groundwork. Basically, when the race starts, everybody's starting from 0, and they are going to slowly accelerate to their normal pace that they're going to be using, right? So they're going to accelerate to, we're just going to say 20. Okay, but a front runner who hits groundwork and taking the lead is going to accelerate faster, which is going to help them build that lead. It's the same principle as we're using in the final leg here, but here it's going to be front runners and people who are, Umas who are trying to go build more of a lead that are going to be using those skills and hitting that middle, that opening leg speed threshold sooner, to create more of a distance between them. So then why are acceleration skills bad in the middle leg? Basically, in the middle leg, your target speed, the speed that your Uma wants to run at, is not really changing drastically enough for any amount of acceleration skills to be worth the skill points that you're spending on them. So, for example, like if your Uma, so we're just imagining that the pace that your Uma wants to run the entire middle leg is going to be 20 miles an hour. And so if she is running 20 miles an hour and she hits like a velocity skill, and the velocity skill, say it's here, so let's say it's like straightaway adept, and she's going to go at 30 miles an hour. So she's going to accelerate to 30 miles an hour, and then decelerate, right? With an acceleration skill here, if you hit an acceleration skill while you're also hitting a velocity skill, you accelerate to 30 miles an hour a little bit faster, but it's not significant enough to ever really be worth the skill points. If you're in pace up mode, if your Uma passes a wit check and they go from 20 miles an hour to 22 miles an hour, right? Your acceleration skill that you're hitting here is like doing something like this, where the amount of acceleration you're actually getting out of these skills that you're taking in the mid leg. Like, for example, I think there's one where, like, if you're a pace chaser in the second half of the race, your acceleration increases. The amount of acceleration that you're actually getting out of this is not enough to ever really be worth the skill points. So you never want to take an acceleration skill that hits in the mid leg. This is kind of why people are. This is why, like, skills like Rushing Gale, right, which can hit, on any straight. So Rushing Gale can hit here. Rushing Gale can hit here. Rushing Gale can hit here, right? So if Rushing Gale hits here, it's pointless because you're not accelerating to a higher speed, right? If Rushing Gale hits here, also pointless. You're not accelerating to a higher speed. If it hits here, also pointless because at this point you are hopefully already at your max speed. If Rushing Gale hits right here, right in this spot, it's like the best skill in the game. But you're gambling on maybe a 1 in 40 chance, right? For every single race. It's not a good skill. It's not reliable. It's not dependable. It's not worth it in most cases. So basically, when you're taking an acceleration skill, you really want to read the skill requirements and understand when that acceleration skill is going to be hitting. Highlander, for example, hits on an uphill. So these are the uphills of the Nakayama racecourse. Would it be a good idea to hit an acceleration skill here, between any of these here? It would not, because you're not doing anything with it. You're not accelerating to a higher speed. So ultimately, you want acceleration skills here if you're like a front runner or somebody who's using groundwork, and then here if you are trying to win the game. All right, so I hope that this diagram hasn't jumped around too much. I came back to this because I have been getting a few questions in my team comp guide about Suzuka in particular and Unrestrained. And I want to kind of tie in why Unrestrained doesn't work on this track with the explanation that I've already given. So Unrestrained is a final corner acceleration, and it will proc at a random point on the final corner if you are in first place. The final corner is here. It's corner 4, so it is here to here, basically. And so when you're comparing this with, and let me not do this in black, hang on. So when you're comparing this, and like, oh my gosh, my lines aren't straight anymore. There we go. All right, when you're comparing this, and you're comparing something that could hit here, or it could hit here, or it could hit here, it could hit here, like any of these, right? With something like moving past beyond, or let's pump some iron, which will proc right here, and it procs here on the Nakayama race course, procs here every race, right? And so if you're comparing something like a late surger to a front runner, a late surger who has like moving past and beyond to a front runner who has unrestrained, it's going to be a little bit unbalanced. So keeping in mind that I'm not going to go into the nuance of acceleration duration or exactly where these are working on the racetrack, we can just keep a really rough estimation. But if this is our late surger, and they are they are accelerating a little bit, and then they hit moving past and beyond, and then they start accelerating more, and then they're going here, right? And then this is our front runner, who is also accelerating a little bit, but they don't hit moving past and beyond. Maybe they hit unrestrained here, then they start accelerating more, and they're here. So it keeping in mind, of course, this is not to scale with the actual Nakayama race course, but this is kind of a graphical representation of why an Accel that happens so late in the race is just not going to be nearly as effective as an Accel that happens early in the final leg. So this is one of the reasons why Suzuka is not going to be as effective on this racetrack as she was in CM7, where the final corner, which is right here, was a lot sooner in the final leg. So with this, you really want to be able to, read the skills, like on Game Torah, which has a bunch of skill descriptions that tells you exactly when the skills should be firing, or even I think in game, like the Unrestrained skill says final corner. And when you're thinking final corner, you're looking here at corner 4. It's not corner 3. So that's why we're not going to be using Unrestrained on our Umas. That's why we're just not using it in the Nakayama 2500. Of course, it's still good on some other race courses. It all just depends on what the race course itself looks like. All right, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about carryover. So in this part of the race, when, let's say, for example, on this corner, we're going to proc Professor of Curvature. So we go 20 miles an hour, we hit Professor of Curvature, we're going to go, maybe 30 miles an hour, and then Professor of Curvature ends, and we go 20 miles an hour again. That's basically how these mid-leg skills are working, where you get a little bit of velocity, you add it to the velocity that you're already moving at, and then when the skill's over, you subtract it and go back to your normal velocity. What makes, let me do that again. Okay, here we go. Just for comparison's sake. Okay, so now if we imagine, we're going to just imagine this is a corner because we're going to compare exactly equal. This is going to be Professor of Curvature as well. We're just going to do it do it in this over this line instead. So now what's happening is you are moving at your normal speed. Then you say, okay, it's time to hit Professor of Curvature. You hit it. You're going at a slightly higher speed. And then you hit this line before your velocity ends, your increased velocity ends. Now what happens here, your target speed is 60 now. Your target speed is no longer 20. So your Uma will never lose the velocity that she has gained from using this velocity skill during this, as she crosses over this threshold, right? So instead, she starts to accelerate to her top speed, which is 60. She's accelerating from this point. She's not accelerating from here. She's accelerating from here. Now, if you have an Uma who did not hit Professor of Curvature here, and even if they have the same acceleration, that Uma is accelerating from a lower speed, so she is going to be accelerating to her top speed. She's going to be hitting her top speed later. Because you are never losing velocity from proccing a velocity skill as you cross this threshold. So that, in a nutshell, is what carryover is. And that is why carryover is so strong, especially why Umas that have variable unique skills, like unique skills that can proc in multiple places, that give them both acceleration and velocity, are so powerful. This is why Christmas Oguri is so powerful, because her unique, if she hits it before the final spurt starts, she not only gets, we're going to say this is Christmas Oguri, this, no, that's not a good color for her. Let's do this one. This is Christmas Oguri. All right. So she not only gets a little bit of acceleration here, or sorry, a little bit of velocity here from her unique, but now she's also getting acceleration, right? So if you can land a velocity plus acceleration skill on this point, like on this line, when the yellow turns into the purple, then your Uma is going to be moving much, much, much faster. And also accelerating. The ideal sweet spot for like min-maxing purposes is going to be to like proc the beginning of a skill, and then like 0.1 seconds before the skill ends, you hit the final spurt. That's not always going to be achievable, but that's kind of the ideal, right? So this is what carryover is. This is what people mean when they're talking about carryover. They mean that you are proccing a velocity skill, or sometimes they mean you're proccing an Accel skill, and you're still in the duration of that skill when you cross this threshold. And that is my quick acceleration primer. Hopefully it helped. I do want to just make a couple really quick notes. The overall acceleration diagrams that I was drawing is missing some nuance about things like skill duration. It's missing some nuance about like the precise kind of wit checks. But I tried to keep it a little bit simple to really explain overarching, like why some things are good, why some things might not be good, and what you want to really try to start looking out for. So it doesn't talk about, I haven't been talking about acceleration durations, acceleration proc requirements, which are things that do matter when you're comparing these skills against each other. And then again, like the things that I've been drawing are not to scale with always with like the Arima Kinen map. I'm trying to be really oversimplify everything so that I can help you to understand the concepts rather than getting lost in the weeds and then like overcomplicating something that ultimately you want to be able to make sure that you can grasp the initial concepts of it before we go a little bit deeper and start looking at things with a little bit more nuance. So hopefully that helped. Hopefully it was a good primer. And let me know if you want to see more content like this, or if this is helpful to you, or hopefully even if it was just a review, like hopefully it passed muster and I didn't get I don't think I got too much wrong, but I'm always a little nervous. Somebody's just gonna come in and be like, everything you said is wrong. But anyway, I really hope that helped, and thank you again for your patience as I've been gone for a little while, and hopefully now I'll be back and working on my ACEs, working on my new CM teams and strategies, and just kind of working on some more content to share with you guys. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.